Okay. It is 1 p.m. on March 11th, 2025, and this is our Governance and Priorities Committee meeting. I will call the meeting to order at 1 p.m. Everyone has an agenda in front of them. Has anyone got any additions or changes to the agenda? If not, just looking for a motion to accept the agenda as presented. Councillor Musker.
Yes, thank you. I'll move that we accept the agenda for the March 11th, 2025 Governance and Priority Committee meeting.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Any discussion on that motion? I'll call that to a vote. All those in favor? That is carried. Moving on to our delegations, we have Stantec doing a master utility plan review, and we have Stephen with Stantec. And I see Sean is here to back up support. Here, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Okay. So today we're talking about the town's utility master plan update. It was last updated about 10 years ago, and that's a good interval for refreshing them. Generally, this is a good news story. Feel free to cheer and applaud as we go if you like. But I must say that going through it, I normally don't have as much good news when I'm delivering these to communities as we do today. So myself, I'm Stephen Wenninger. I'm with Stantec down the road in Red Deer. And as a project background, again, it's been about 10 years and you're updating your offsite levies right now. So that's a good impetus to do these master plan updates, just to make sure that your offsite levies are capturing the infrastructure improvements that you have made and that you need to make to support your growth in terms of those utilities you see in front of there, right there: water, wastewater, stormwater, and transportation. Offsite levies are based on a 25-year plan. However, as part of our assignment, we were given a broader area around town that goes far beyond that. So we'll be talking a little bit about the 25-year plan, and then also a little glimpse of what things look like far beyond that. I'm not going to read line for line everything in this busy slide, but a key point I wanted to highlight is that this study is meant as a high-level servicing study, give you that 10,000-foot view of where you are now and where you want to go. Not meant to be a block by block, and we don't get into which block of sewer in town might need to be relined next year. This is to accommodate growth. Any questions on that while I go?
I see Councillor Shippold has a question.
Okay.
And Stephen, if I can. So the question is, you just indicated this wasn't a block-by-block thing, but you've identified the Metal Dog subdivision as well as the IDP. Mm-hmm. Why would you separate that out of that statement and not just call it the IDP? What was the thought processes behind identifying one specific subdivision in that opening motherhood statement?
My apologies if that is within the IDP area. We can remove that from the actual report, but I thought it was serviced prior to. But there's no broader thinking behind that.
Okay. So no other questions? You can continue on.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you. Out of existing development, you have about 33% of your development areas residential, 29% open space and recreational, about a fifth commercial, a fifth industrial, and then your downtown core. That's a pretty common mix. What we're seeing for growth for the future is that there's room for about 250% growth in terms of just areas, right? There's a lot of room to work with on both sides of the river. We're talking about room of growth for about 18,000 people within the IDP lands. Within just infill development of what you have already developed in there, the accommodation for about 2,500 people. So there's lots of room available to grow within that. At your current growth rate, you'll see that number highlighted at the bottom, about 268 years worth of growth. Obviously, none of us has that crystal ball. But what this tells us is this overall plan does accommodate game-changing growth. Currently, the hot thing is data centers, for example, and Stantec has clients that are doing data centers that take up about a quarter section worth of land each and place enormous demands on your utility systems. If you get some of those are the kind of game changers that will chew up that land a lot faster. But in terms of the steady as she goes, what we're accommodating here, yeah, we are far, far beyond that. Here's just a figure showing future growth areas and types of development. So you'll see this yellow color, that's residential, and purple is industrial area. So for the 25-year plan, here's where the big congratulations comes into place. I mentioned earlier there was a plan done about 10 years ago. You've been working on that plan, moving forward, and no major changes, no major surprises for the next 25 years. It is just keep going. Your water, wastewater, stormwater utilities are all looking good from a capacity perspective. As I mentioned earlier, we don't go block by block. Regulatory changes might come in the future that make you do certain upgrades, but from that broad capacity perspective, thumbs up, you guys are doing awesome. You've been, again, following that plan. Your water treatment plant, for example, that's even far earlier than that last master plan update that you did, and it's continuing to hold you in good stead. Everything is looking pretty great there. We've identified towards the tail end of that improvement, or as may be driven if development happens a little faster than that, $2 million worth of water and sewer upgrades just to extend your underground utilities out to future development. Transportation-wise, what we're seeing here is pretty much everything there was identified in your last plan, and that's just things that haven't had to happen yet because the growth hasn't driven them yet. So it's just carry on. 25-year improvements, and again, these are almost all on that from that transportation list here. About $2 million of water and wastewater extensions, and about $26 million worth of transportation upgrades.
I see Councillor Shippold has a question.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Stephen, if you could, can you identify, you have modifications on several intersections there at the bottom of that one page. There's 3. Do you know off the top of your head what those are? What?
Yeah.
Can you just sort of describe them in general terms as to what the thought processes are that need to happen on those?
Yeah, general, it's we do transportation modeling to identify capacity needs. And sometimes you're shutting down maybe an all-turns movement because you have too much traffic flow through there, or sometimes it's just improving the geometry of an access and it's not a major upgrade. These ones specifically, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but they're all identified in the report, and I'd have to get back to you with the specifics. but generally, everything here is fairly minor.
The only reason I ask is sometimes we do maintenance on streets in terms of re-asphalting and stuff like that. And if we got a plan in place and we have some indication as to what will be happening down the road, it may be something that would happen sooner than later if need be. So rather than a duplication of costs or spending money this year, asphalt's got a shelf life to it. So if it's done, if there's modifications required, you know, it only makes sense that we're
I might be
not
able
spending
to-
money.
Might add some clarity on that, and I agree full-heartedly. We don't want to repave a road and then rip it up. But a lot of these are for the highway accesses right adjacent to the highways and whatnot, so they're joint responsibility areas. Also, the service life of asphalt, again, like, we're gonna be doing some work on, 47th and other areas, but we can't wait 25 years or whenever these intersections improvements do come for some of them. So for some of these, you might see some asphalt improvements, but again, not full rebuilds and then ripping that up. But again, a lot of these projects are happening at the tail end of this 25 years, and so some actions might be required before that. But a lot of these are joint responsibility areas with Alberta Highways as well.
Thank you. It just says, I didn't realize at the end of 25 years, it says this is a 25-year plan, so that could happen in 2 years, it could happen in 25 years. So my question is, where does it fall into the spectrum of being done? And is it a duplication? So I appreciate if it's at the end, that's great. There's no indication of that in this report for us, so.
Yeah, that's right. I think based on growth trajectory, it was around 2040 was that projection. A lot of these are quite far out. But to your point earlier, where there's an opportunity to knock off a few of these small ones, if that comes out, as Sean was saying about if you're doing asphalt work or whatever, yeah, if you have the money available, no harm in doing it early.
Not seeing any further questions, so you can continue on with your report.
Okay, on your water system, your actual daily usage is pretty close to what your design guidelines require. However, encompasses residential, institutional, commercial, and industrial flows. So the lesson from this slide here is as we apply all these factors and demand nodes and all that to account for your average day compared to your peak day and then your peak hour where everybody's getting up in the morning at the same time. We end up with plans that are a little bit conservative, and then they kind of compound and compound. So in our master plan, we're talking about development areas with some very large pipes going out to accommodate this growth. What we want to make sure is that before you go and build those, you take that shorter term view, again, come back to this 25 years. So if 10 years from now you're saying, oh, there's some development and we do want to fast track some of these pipe sizes, don't take the pipe sizes we have here as gospel truth. Just look at what type of industrial development do we have? Is it that data center that we mentioned earlier, or is it a trucking company that doesn't have very high water and wastewater use? And then let's right size those pipes based on that. So all the math and everything we did in here for those far out growth areas, it's quite conservative. Your water treatment plant, will carry you, based on those conservative numbers, to about 10,700 people. As you get closer and closer to that number and you start to plan and maybe you start to make reserves for that, you want to look again at, is it really close to capacity, or can we get another 5 and 10 years out of it before doing those upgrades? Carry forward, if we were to take your plant as you have it now and look at all those layers of conservatism in that development, you'd be looking at having about 10 times your water treatment capacity, so adding 9x to it. So that's just gives you kind of that view of how far that long-term plan looks out and what it kind of tells you. But usually when I'm giving presentations like this, we're talking about you need to do a significant upgrade to your water plant right now. So it's, yeah, a very good news thing to not have to tell you that, and to in fact tell you that you should be good for the next 25 years based on capacity. But again, changing regulations might require you to do some work in the interim to meet changing standards. Your existing treatment plant, so the capacity is 8,000 cubic meters a day. So again, I said a service of about 10,700 people, and that's accounting for a peak day usage, which is how we size water plants. And then your main pumping station, good for your 25-year growth again. Your reservoir storage, also good. Long term, we're looking at again something in that order of 10 times in your capacity growths, but that's outside of this 25-year horizon. $171 million worth of long-term upgrades as identified in that service area. But recall from that initial slide, less than $1 million of that is what we're seeing for the next 25 years. A very similar story on the wastewater. So we have these levels of conservatism built in for your future demands. Your current design guidelines look pretty close to your average day usage, but when we start to apply those peaking factors, it does make the situation very conservative. Your industrial flow allowance and your inflow and infiltration allowance, so that's rainwater and groundwater getting to your sewer systems. Those match Alberta Environment and Protected Area guidelines for what to account for in your development. However, that's accounting for high water use industrial and commercial development. So before you go and build any of that, look at what that specific development is actually needing and then right size it to that. This is kind of a worst case, best case scenario. Best case in that it's something that's using that much water is likely a very, very high assessment value, but worst case is it is putting a major strain on your utilities. Your new wastewater plant that's being finished off this year, good for about 9,000 people. System upgrades at full build out, $188 million, but once again, just over $1 million for that 25-year horizon.
I just see a question from Councillor Shipple.
Thank you. And this question's probably for Mr. Kraus.
Okay.
I was under the impression that the new water treatment plant, wastewater treatment plant was going to be good for over 10,000 people, and this says 9. So are we only building it so we can grow by a small portion?
It's designed with a 50-year time horizon, and I believe it is that 10,000 number. Yeah. So yeah, there's just
So
a
this is
discrepancy
9, and I
on
was
here.
under the impression it was 10. I just want to get clarity as to what.
Yeah, so again, your design guidelines are pretty conservative. Based on your average day, what you use now, that 10 number is probably fine. It's probably even more than that. Once we apply all these guideline factors of double it for a peak day, allow for these really high levels of rainwater getting into your system that you might not be seeing, those kinds of things. Once we apply all those conservatisms into that, we came up with a number of 9,000, but I wouldn't doubt at all that 10 plus is accurate.
And it might be a slightly different methodology as well. The wastewater treatment plant was designed for 50 years based on growth, but it's really concerned with average day flows, and those are the numbers used. Whereas for the pipe design and the system design, you often use peak. And you have peaking factors as well as the other factors, and that's what's likely bringing that down to 9,000 in their estimation, but I'm confident in the plant and its sizing for 50 years regardless. So it's just different method, and like Stephen mentioned, there's a lot of conservatism built into that, and I guess that's one of the places that this shows up, is they're including that peaking factor, like you mentioned, you know, everybody flushes in the morning and whatnot. The plant doesn't really care about the peaking amount because it has storage capacity for that. And it's more about the average day flow for that process. So some of the conservatism isn't necessarily as needed for that. And I would consider the 50-year design, even that itself was conservative from MPE. So again, I'm confident in it for 50 years. And yeah, the design population for the wastewater treatment plant is, I don't want to give you a number off the top of my head because it's there, but I'm pretty sure it's more than 9,000.
Go ahead.
So 9,000 people, 50-year, I like the number 50 years that we're building out. It's a $30 million plant. I would hope that it's good for 50 years. I would also hope that we're more than 9,000 people in 50 years. So that's what scares me, is that there's a disconnect in my thought processes. I can't quite join the dots on this one to make it work for $30 million as to the 9,000 kind of scares me. 50 years doesn't, but we can move on because Sean's saying, hey, he's confident, so as long as he's confident, I'm confident.
Okay, Councillor Musker.
Thank you. Just if I can add on to that, I have a question for Sean. So we have this new plant, and my guess is if we exceed growth, it's not that we need another $30 million plant. It can be staged growth at the existing plant.
Correct. That was during one of the scoping designs early on. That's why we went with the SBR reactor type, because it's a sequencing batch reactor. So each reactor, and if there's going to be 4, we can add another reactor to that. Again, we will need it, you know, likely upgrade the centrifuge and the screens and whatnot. So it's not just adding to it, but that is largely intent as opposed to other methodologies that you can't just add on to it. So the plant type is designed that you can just add on more reactors for that increased capacity.
Okay, not seeing any more questions. You can continue on.
So your stormwater network, again, 9,000, but that's a very conservative 9,000. Everything is looking pretty good. No major upgrades that we're suggesting that you need within the next 25 years based on current growth projections. Once again, we're talking about 188 million, but that's all long-term growth areas, with the exception of about 1.2 million, I think it was, for sewer upgrade to extend for development that you might see within this 25-year growth horizon. Your stormwater network, one thing that I do want to highlight, so a lot of your existing development had a stormwater release rate of 8 liters per second per hectare historically. I think your current guidelines match up with this, but in our modeling, we're saying 6 liters per second per hectare is what can be expected to run off an undeveloped site in a peak storm event, so a 1 in 100 year storm event. So that's generally what stormwater is designed to, so that you don't have higher flows than that. So as quarter sections of development happen in the future, we're saying you should be planning on requiring developers to detain that rate on site. And then, so for a typical quarter section development, that would be a pond of about 45,000 cubic meters. That's not out of line with what you would see in other communities throughout central Alberta. It's a pretty normal detention amount. And again, this is all going to be on site from what we're seeing. So future developers will understand that they have to leave their stormwater on site except for that peak flow. And $80 million worth of that stormwater improvements. But again, these are all projected to be on-site improvements and beyond that 25-year horizon. So we're not asking you to take any immediate actions here. Transportation, I think everything appeared in your previous plan, and it's just being carried forward with the exception of an upgrade of 42 Avenue to 4 lanes and expansion of the road network into the IDP areas. That expansion into the IDP areas is projected to be completed by the developers. As they build out to there, they do those roads that connect into existing development. Here's just a figure to show network upgrades and long-term infrastructure on your road network. There's not anything really out of the ordinary. Biggest transportation upgrades you're going to see is going to be when the highway gets upgraded through town. That's the most monumental. That's not being carried as a town project. That's something that Alberta Transportation would be on the hook for based on current funding formulas and such. And again, I can't stress how typically I come into a community and tell them they have a lot of work to do over the next 25 years. I know I've thrown some big numbers out there, and they are quite far beyond that 25-year in general. So yeah, this is just a testament to good governance and administration over the past 25 years, and again over the past 10 since your last study update was completed.
Okay, thank you very much for that presentation. Do we have any other questions? Councillor Shippold.
Thank you. So through this report, as I read it, it seemed like there was a real weighted movement to go to the southwest quadrant of our community for future development. When it talks about roadways, sewer lines, all that kind of water line stuff like that. I just want to know what the notion is, and if you've looked at other areas. It just seems really weighted to that quadrant of our community. Was that just because it was in a previous plan, or did you look at where future development could happen to ensure that we have appropriate water lines and sewer lines and roadways going there? So it just seems weighted there.
Yeah, we carried on with previous plans, but those previous plans were informed by what are the easiest areas to service first, and so you want to move out concentrically, and yeah, with your water and sewer systems, you want to keep them as close to your plants as practical. However, traffic movements sometimes play an impact on that. In your overall plan here, this will get you to that endpoint of filling up everything in that area over the next 268 years. How you get there, we're completely agnostic to it. You need all that infrastructure to get to that endpoint anyhow. But yeah, to the southwest does seem to be logical based on the ease of putting in the water and the sewer lines.
Thank you. Is that because everything would be gravity fed from there? Is that?
It maximizes the gravity. I think you have about 7 lift stations in town right now.
Yeah.
So while you're blessed with a lot of topography to maximize your sewer capacities, unfortunately you do have to pump that stuff uphill from time to time as well. But generally speaking, yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm not seeing any further questions, so thank you very much for coming in today and presenting this. It's always good to hear that the town of Rocky Mountain House is being very fiscally responsible and managing our assets very well, and this report definitely says that.
Thank you for the invitation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on to our agenda, we're looking at adoption of the previous minutes. We have the minutes from the February 11th, 2025 GPC meeting. Everyone had a chance to look at those, and is there any errors or omissions or anything that needs to be changed? Deputy Mayor, or Councillor Shipple, sorry,
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I also move those minutes to be accepted as presented.
presented. Okay, thank you for that motion. Do we have any discussion on that motion? All those in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to item 5.1, the Stantec Master Utility Plan Review. Do we have any more discussion we need to have on this presentation we just had? Councillor Shipple.
Yes, so is this it, or is there another document that comes along with this that has
Excuse me.
dates or?
Yeah, no,
This
so this
seems
is,
pretty minuscule.
oh yeah, so acting mayor to Councilor Shipple. No, there's 200, sorry, there's about like a 200-page document that backs this up. So now that it's been presented to council, staff will finalize that document with Stantec. They will bring it back to council for approval. So this is basically a high-level presentation, because next month also we will be bringing the off-site levy to the GPC, and that needs to be backed by the master plan.
Councillor
Perfect,
Shipple.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. So any other questions? If not, just looking for a motion to accept the presentation as information. Councillor Ald.
I'll make the motion, we accept Stantec's presentation as information.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Any discussion? All those in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to item 6.1, the request for a decision on data center. And I see Mr. Schwader and Mr. Hartling are here to present.
Good afternoon, Acting Mayor, Council. Just before Council here today, on February 11th, we got direction from Council in regards to see if we could access some grant funding to do a feasibility study for a data center. Over the last 3 weeks, we've been unsuccessful in locating or getting a grant in regards to data center feasibility study. So we're here before council as far as looking for direction again in regards to how we want to proceed with the feasibility study for the data center.
Okay, thank you for the update. What discussion do we have on this particular agenda item? Deputy Mayor Hutchinson.
Thank you. Just after having the last presentation that we did, so if we proceeded with the feasibility case study, would that include information on possible upgrades for water, sewer, et cetera, and what that would look like? You're looking like you don't know what I'm talking
Well,
about.
I was going to say, I don't think the feasibility study would cover the water. I think our system would be suffice for the water requirement for the data center.
He had just made reference to that comment about if there was a data center, would make changes in our system, so just curious on that part.
And I guess it's dependent on, I guess, the data center, if it requires more than what we can provide, I guess we'd have to look at that.
So acting mayor, so the feasibility would identify the size of data center that we're looking at, which can vary significantly, I think, which we've learned. But if it bases on a larger data center, the feasibility study would give us the water requirements for that such a facility. Then we would have to take that back, go back to the master utility plan to see if that plan actually can accommodate it, or we have to increase capacity to a data center.
Councillor Musker.
There, the light works, thank you. Thank you to administration for all the effort put into this. I think it gets us kind of pointed in the right direction. I was looking at the documents you provided from the Government of Alberta, the AI Data Center Strategy, and next steps there. It says in early 2025, Alberta's government will implement specific actions under the 3 strategic pillars of power capacity, sustainable cooling, and economic growth. It goes on to say, Alberta's government will act to provide regulatory certainty for the AI data center industry, collaborate with municipalities and Indigenous communities, looking at investment attraction and maximize the economic benefits for Albertans, and it goes on. I'm suggesting we hit pause here and we wait to see what the provincial government does with this. There may be grants available coming, and so let's keep it front and center. But I think we should wait to see some leadership at the next level of government. That's my suggestion.
More discussion? Counselor Ald and then Counselor Shipple.
Thanks, Acting Mayor. The only issue I have with waiting for the Alberta government to step up to the plate is that they always focus on the larger centers, Calgary's, Edmonton's, Fort Sask. If we're not pushing this to get into the smaller municipalities, I don't think the government is ever gonna look at a place like Rocky to create something that's gonna be feasible for us. So I don't know if waiting on the government is appropriate or not, but I'm not sure exactly what we should do. But
Counselor Shipple.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I'm in Councillor All's camp on this one. That same document you referred to from the Alberta government goes on to say that municipal collaboration will be important. Municipalities across Alberta play a vital role in attracting and enabling AI data center developments. By working closely with local governments, Alberta will assist in identifying opportunities. I think if we've identified that we can handle it, we hopefully will move to the top of the list of the provincial government to say, hey, we are ready. So I'd be in favor of moving forward in doing the study so that we are ready to help with the Alberta government's assistance when they come knocking on municipalities' doors. And it goes on to say that they want to accelerate project implementation. So this would further go along with accelerating that implementation. So I think if we're going to promote development within our community, this is just another way of promoting it and being ready for it. The provincial government's identified that they're going to move forward with it. So, you know, is this the right way to go? I'm not 100% sure, but I think it could give us a leg up with what's going on by doing it. So that's where I'm at. I would support the spend.
Deputy Mayor Hutchinson.
Thank you. I mean, that kind of goes along the lines of where we've been going with our strategic planning with, you know, get the plans on the shelf, have it ready, and then when the opportunity's here, we move forward and take advantage of it. So I think I'm on the same page with the two of you that going ahead sooner than later, maybe we get the, you know, we beat out somebody else who's waiting for the provincial government. And we know sometimes that takes just a little bit longer than normal.
So I agree that this is something we should move forward on now and not wait. For the reasons that have been already alluded to, the province is very committed to looking at AI data centers, and we don't want to be falling behind. We want to be on the leading edge of that and take advantage of when the province announces new things and new projects that we can potentially get in the mix and have them come to our area as opposed to someone else's area. Councillor Caprero.
Thank you. I'm in favor of moving forward with this as well. I just have a question. So for a feasibility study, do we have to give where something like this could go, like options, or is that done through the feasibility? They look at all the town land and kind of pinpoint as to where something like this could be placed. I just don't know if they look at only town-owned land or if it would encompass potential regardless of who it was owned by.
I guess in the RFP, we would suggest to the consultant to pick out ideal locations. We'd probably provide what's available land within the community for them to work with.
Okay, more discussion, more questions, comments? Councillor Ald.
if there's no more comments, I'd be prepared to make a motion. And because this was Councillor Mooseker's idea that brought it to us, I'd hate to see this sit and us not doing anything with it. So I'd make a motion that be it resolved that Governance Priorities Committee rise and report to direct administration to contract a consultant at a cost of $20,000 to create a feasibility case study for a data center within Rocky Mountain House from the council priority reserve.
Thank you for that motion, Councillor Ald. Do we have any discussion on that motion? Deputy Mayor Hutchinson.
Just a comment for the public that, you know, going back in history and the feasibility case study that was done by the town for a craft brewery that wasn't located in town, but has brought so much attention, business, community support. I mean, the list is endless for what the result of us doing a case study has brought to the community.
Okay, thank you for that comment. Any more discussion? Seeing none, I will call that to a vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to new business, item 7.1, the mail service to the industrial area. And Mr. Kraus, is that Ms. Button? Okay.
Good afternoon, Council. That's usually my line. Use your mic. So back in January, Council asked us to reach out to the businesses in the industrial area about their mail service and ask them what they want, basically to corroborate what Council has heard and give, Council, if Council chooses, to go back to Canada Post and say, this is what we have. We hand-delivered about 100 letters, including the survey, to all businesses on the east side of Highway 11. At the end of January, we asked them to either return the hard copy that was on the reverse of the letter, or we had a QR code that was scannable that would take them right to the survey site. Really simple questions. How do you get your mail? Are you satisfied? If not, what do you want better? So of those 100 that went out, we received 21 back. 13 of them are perfectly content with their mail delivery service. 8 of them saw room for improvement. And 4 of those 8 were asking for super boxes and provided their names. And so you've got four businesses that you could take back to Canada Post and say these are the businesses asking. I don't necessarily think that the response is going to be enough to sway Canada Post. They were looking for something of significant change, new information that we could provide. But that is what the business community west of Highway 11 told us. I have a little map on the last page of the report. It's color-coded, that shows kind of the general area of where the responses came from. Those with frontage right along Highway 11 are generally more satisfied, while as actually back off Highway 11 in the industrial area, it's split down the middle. Some people don't mind, and it really depends on the nature of the business too. It's not a one-size-fits-all response. The other consideration is, if Canada Post were to put super boxes in, those businesses that were satisfied with what they have right now and wanted to maintain their current service going to the mailboxes at the post office, that would now come with a fee, a charge attached to that P.O. box, because you have service at your business or in a super box on the street. So that is something for council to consider. We didn't ask that question. It wasn't part of our formal questions that we asked, but it is something that came to light as we went through this.
Okay, thank you for that report. Do we have discussion on that? Councillor Schippold.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I'm just wondering, was there a question pertinent to postal code availability for third-party people who drop stuff off and they drop off according to postal codes? is there any question relevant to postal codes on there?
There was not.
So I'm a little disappointed in how few responses we got with how many went out. It doesn't really give us a lot to work with. That's the unfortunate part of this. What does council think we should do with this particular topic? Are we prepared to go further with this? Are we prepared to accept this for information? Councillor Musker.
Thank you. It doesn't seem to be a priority for the people in the industrial area. That's just my observation.
Councillor Capero.
I agree with Councillor Musker. Just with the low turnout of response, that tells me that it's not a big priority. So as far as I'm concerned, I would just leave it be then.
Yeah, I agree. I think with this low of a response, I think we would have a very difficult time trying to get Canada Post to react just based on the information that we've got here. So what does council want to do with this? Do we want more discussion? Do we want to take it further? Councillor Musker, I see your hand going for that.
Well, I'll let Councillor Chappelle go first.
Councillor Shippold.
Thank you. Thank you, Acting Mayor. Well, it's disappointing that there's so few, people who've been involved in it. Over a period of time, I definitely have heard more than this would suggest. So I'm not sure there seems to be a disconnect with what I once upon a time heard out there versus what we've got in hard copy. So I'm really torn as to which way to go. To me, the biggest concern was no postal codes in the industrial area, and there was going to be no postal codes till there was super boxes in place and people were getting items delivered to their houses because they had a postal code at their house, whereas they didn't have one in the industrial area, which they were looking for. I don't know. I'm maybe ask administration, Mr. Kraus, what's your, do you think we're going to just get told to have a good day, or what's your suggestion?
Yeah, so acting mayor to Councillor Schultz, it really doesn't give us much to lobby or leverage with Canada Post. I mean, we could try, but I'm also looking at the ones who didn't respond. If it goes in, are they going to be upset also? Because now either they pay for the post office box to keep it that way, or not. So.
Councillor Musker.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I think Council and Administration have run this to the end of its course, so I'd like to make a motion that we accept this for information.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Any discussion on Councillor Musker's motion? If not, I'll call it to a vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to item 7.2, the spring 2025 repealing decision. And Ms. Breeze?
Good afternoon,
Yes.
Council. So the spring repealing bylaw, which is actually policies as well, you'll have a look at it, and there's 3 different appendixes with this one. So the first one is just basically a simple update to the personnel policy. There's minor amendments that administration is bringing forward. The second appendix is policies that are current, but we want to review them ever so often, so there's no changes that are necessary. We just want to update the actual review date, saying that we've taken a look at the policy, everything's current, we're happy with it. And then the third appendix is policies that are definitely, they're either out of date, they're totally irrelevant, or they're just not needed or not used within the organization, so we would like to see those gone. So if council has any questions?
Definitely looking at the list, the appendix 3 of the out-of-date or irrelevant ones is quite large. So, Mr. Kraus, this is basically a kind of a cleanup of our bylaws.
That is, our legislative staff have gone through all of our old policies, or all active policies, and have compiled this for council's consideration. It is a cleanup. We still have to do bylaws, which some go way back, but this is the first step in the major cleanup.
Okay?
Yeah, so to
Count-
go a little further with that, bylaws take a little bit more to kind of make go away or repeal. Policies are a little simpler, so we'll take a bit more time going through the bylaws to review them and bring them back. And then we'll also bring back probably more policies come the fall that we've missed in the first or haven't had a chance to fully review, because certain departments we're bringing them out to, like if it says legislative, we're gonna review it. If it's, you know, planning, we're gonna send it off to Dean Proust's department for review, so we're gonna actually plan on doing this hopefully every year, spring and fall.
Okay.
And I think, just, this is administration's review of it, but these are council's policies. So we are looking to council to say, did we get this review right? Or is there something that you want to add, change, or review in all of these policies? And these would come back to council, so that
Would they come back one at a time? Or is it
if,
kind of-
well, council selects a couple of there for, greater review, then they would come back individually as an RFD, individually. Yeah, so it's a one topic item.
Counselor Shippold.
So I have a general question, and then I want to get this process under my, so let me first ask my general question. Some of the bylaws and the policies we have, some are dated at the end when they're signed, some are not. Is there a specific policy as to if there should be a date at the end or not as to when it's signed? Because when I look at some of them, you really got to hunt to find out when that, and it has an effective date, but it doesn't have a signing date on it. So do we have a policy as to whether these documents should have a line at the end when you sign them with a date on them? Just
Is that policy or bylaw?
all of the above.
All the above. So bylaws always have a third reading, and when they're signed, it becomes effective on that third reading, and that date is always written in the bylaw. So that's a standard procedure for
Okay.
bylaws. Policies, we are revamping the template to make sure it does have those dates when it's signed or passed by council, either by resolution number, so we can always go back to a certain date.
Okay. So then my second question is, so I have, for example, I have questions on the very first item on there with the policy on personal one. So are we talking about that today, or are we going to bring that back, or how is that going to happen?
We can definitely talk about it today, because we'll have to bring it back to council for approval, because today's just discussion on it. So if council wants to discuss any of these policies today, it's entirely up to council.
Okay. So if I go to, say, for example, 3.3 sub C, where it gives this CAO discretion, I'm just wondering if it should say CAO and director. So this is relative to a 3-month probationary period. So if there's an employee under a director, the director should as well have that ability, or C,
See?
3.3 sub C. I'm just wondering if you have discretion on all that if they're done their probationary period prior to, but I'm wondering if it shouldn't also be the director has that same.
Employees are changed. Within the town, yeah. So that's when one person is already employed at the town, but it applies for another internal position and moves to that position.
Okay, so that's only you gets to prove that?
It's at the discretion. So typically, if it's an employee that's been with us 5 years but just moves to another position, you may not always have a probationary period. Because they,
Okay. So under termination, so I'm looking at page 19. So 6.2 sub 3, sub D. Termination of benefits. So what it has here is typically your benefits plan covers a specific month. It doesn't get cut off on the 15th or the 18th. So if somebody quits on the 6th of the day of the month or gets terminated on the 6th of the month, they get coverage for 31 days when in fact we're actually paying till the end of the following month, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm just wondering if we're paying for it, then there's no reason why that employee shouldn't get the benefit of that plan.
Well, there are reasons why they wouldn't.
Well,
So,
you can still pay for it and they can tell them they don't have it, but.
if they're qualified for the benefits, we don't want them to make a claim for like short-term disability if they're no longer employed for us. Because then that cost carries on. So if an employee's terminated or quits, that's when the benefit stops.
No, it says here it continues for 31 days.
Well, that's the life insurance.
Oh,
Yeah.
coverage of the life insurance.
Insurance, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So just for clarification, Councillor Schipholt, are you looking to want these amendments brought forth for this one today, or are we looking to do this
Yeah,
at a
I just had
council meeting?
questions, so.
Okay.
Yeah, so administration is just, we did provide some recommendations for changes in this policy, and it was more for clarification to staff. And that pertains to where is it? The sick days, basically, or personal days, of how that's calculated. It's based on the week, so we will be bringing this back to council on the next council meeting for council's consideration and approval of that.
Councillor Schipholt.
Thank you. So if you have you looked at them already, or just gonna look at them? Because, for example, North Saskatchewan River Park, the insurance requirement there is $2 million. And $2 million typically is, normally it's 5 now. And so, I'm just wondering as to,
Oh, you're talking about one of the policies that's in there?
yeah,
And so-
Yes, yeah.
So.
North Saskatchewan River Park
Mhm.
policy.
So that is one that we are looking for council to repeal, or
Okay,
to rescind,
so-
I mean, to get rid of totally.
Okay.
Because we carry a minimum of 5 million now, so.
Okay.
So basically, what we're looking for is motions to bring Appendix 1, Appendix 2, and Appendix 3 to rise and report those to a council meeting so that we can amend them, or revoke.
Rescind. So I think probably for clarity of process, when we bring it back to council, we'll do 3 RFDs. This one is to consider amendment of a policy. This one is just for review, because the review date's up on them. And then the third one these are the ones that we are recommending to council that we rescind.
Okay, council discussion on that. Are we okay with that, Councillor Busker?
Thank you. To CEO Crows, that's a great idea. This is a large block of information. So if we could carve it up a little bit to make it more palatable, that'd be great. But I'm prepared to make the first motion. Be it resolved that Governance Priorities Committee rise and report the amended 011/2024 personnel policy to the, what's the date you'd like? March the?
Yeah.
March the 20th, 2025, regular council meeting for council's consideration.
Okay, thank you for that first motion, Councillor Musker. Do we have any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call that to a vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. We have two other recommended. Councillor Capero.
Thank you. I'll make the motion, be it resolved that Governance and Priorities Committee rise and report the amended of the policies in Appendix 2 of the report to update review dates to the March 20th, 2025 regular council meeting for council's consideration.
Thank you, Councillor Capero, for that motion. Discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call that to a vote. All those in favor? That's carried. And we have one more. Deputy Mayor Hutchinson.
Thank you. Be it resolved that Governance and Priorities Committee rise and report the repeal of the policies in Appendix 3 of the report to the February 18th, March 20th, 2025 regular council meeting for council's consideration.
Okay, thank you for that motion, Deputy Mayor Hutchinson. Any questions, comments? If not, I'm going to call that to a vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. We have no correspondence for action, so we have two items for correspondence for information. Does anyone need any clarification on those, or are we okay to accept those for information? Councillor Auld.
If there's nothing anybody wants to draw out, I would just accept 9.1, 9.2 as information.
Thank you for that motion. Any discussion? All those in favor? And that is carried. So moving on to the activity and committee reports, the acting mayor's report, item 10.1. Has anyone got any questions on my report? It's a fairly lengthy one. If not, just looking for a motion to accept my report as presented. Councillor Sheffield.
Also make that motion, and we accept the acting mayor's activity report as information.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. 10.2, the council activity reports. Councillor Caprero.
Thank you. If anyone has any questions, let me know. I just want to highlight, and I'm sure Deputy Mayor Hutchinson will as well. So we had our Family Day event on the 17th. We had a really great turnout. Thank you again to all the volunteers and everyone that helped out with it. It's just nice to see that as we do more, it seems like we have more people attend. So it's just really nice to see.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Caprero. Any questions? No? Then Deputy Mayor Hutchinson.
Yeah, like Councillor Capero said, we had our event. It seems like it was so long ago now.
I know.
We were very thankful that the Public Works was able to accommodate us when we counciled for the outdoor event, as we brought it all indoors, and we thank them for packing things up and then having to unpack them. I had attended, the Rocky Learning Council had received the grant for the missing ingredient in partnership with FCSS and the youth, the other group. Sorry, my apologies for not remembering it right now. So anyways, it was a great turnout. I'd say there was about 24, 25 people. And they're doing that every Monday from, I believe it's 1 o'clock to 3:30. And they have two components in it. They have a learning session on whatever's relevant for the day. The one was about assets that we have inside ourselves, and kind of a little workshop that went with that. And then the other half was actually preparing a meal, low-cost meals with items out of the food bank, and how to kind of stretch your food to last a little bit longer in the times that a lot of people are having trouble putting good, decent meals on the table. So that was a really fun one. It's open to anybody. On Mondays, it's on Rocky Learning Council webpage as well. What else did I do? A healthcare engagement team. We had an update on the new clinic building and the process for them going forward. If anybody has any questions on that, they can let me know. And I think that's about it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor Hutchinson. Seeing no other questions, Councillor Musker.
Thank you. My report is complete. I have nothing further to add.
Okay. Thank you. Not seeing any questions. I'll move it on to Councillor Shippold.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. My report is there. Any questions? I'll answer questions.
Okay. Not seeing any questions. Okay. Councillor Auld, did you want to make a verbal report, or are you okay at this time?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Good. Okay. So I will make a motion to accept item 10.2, the council activity and community report, or committee reports, as information. Discussion on that motion? Seeing none. All those in favor? That is carried. Administrative reports, 11.1, Mr. Kraus.
Yeah, no, thank you, Acting Mayor. So all the reports are before council. If council has any questions?
Deputy Mayor Hutchinson.
Thank you. I did have a question under the engineering and operations. Talking about transportation, it says stripped down fire truck for parks use.
So the Clearwater Regional Fire Department got a new bush truck, I guess is what they call them. The old one that they are replacing is town-owned. So we are repurposing that truck for parks because it's great for watering and stuff. I forget the year of the truck, Rob. It's 07, but it only has 30,000 kilometers on it. So we are repurposing it.
Okay, I was thinking our ladder truck, and I couldn't figure out what that had to do with our parks.
We may repurpose that to water the planters, but
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for department reports? If not, just looking for a motion to accept the reports as information. Councillor Auld.
I'll make that motion that we accept the department reports for information.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Any discussion on that motion? Call it to a vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to the action list. Mr. Kraus.
yeah, thank you, Acting Mayor. So just to go through the open project. So wayfinding project that has been released as per council for so an RFP is out on that right now. And public can see all of our RFPs on the website, just as a reminder. The data center that was brought back to council today, so that's completed now. The remuneration policy discussion, we're bringing back that in April for council's discussion, and that's just the policy of per diems and honorariums and clarification of the policy. And I think that is it for the open.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Kraus on the action list? Not, just looking for a motion to accept the action list as information. Councillor Musker.
Thank you. I move that we accept the action list for information.
Thank you for that motion. Discussion on that motion? All those in favor? That is carried. Item 13, do we have any notices of motion today? Not seeing any notices of motion. We have nothing for closed session, so I will adjourn the meeting at 2:09. Thanks, everyone. Good meeting.